by the Supreme Court of the United States could have huge repercussions in US politics. The US Supreme Court accidentally uploaded a draft opinion on its website regarding a crucial abortion case before promptly removing it. The opinion pertains to the question of whether hospitals in Idaho are obligated to carry out abortions in an emergency situation, despite a state law that prohibits the procedure. The US Supreme Court error appears to reveal a setback for Idaho abortion ban. That's because Idaho is known to have very strict restrictions in place. Though the Supreme Court spokeswoman Patricia McCabe has confirmed that the document was inadvertently and briefly uploaded to the court website, but she further added that the ruling has not been released. The apparent draft opinion briefly published on the court's website, which was downloaded and shared by Bloomberg, showed that a majority of the court's 9 justices had voted to reinstate a lower court ruling that had blocked a near-total ban on abortions in Idaho. It is still unclear whether the document is the final version of the decision. But as reported by Bloomberg, the temporarily posted version of the opinion indicated that the court is likely to rule in favor of the federal government. Now, if this holds true, hospitals in states with abortion bans will be required to perform abortions in emergency situations while the case continues to be litigated. The Supreme Court in January had blocked the lower court ruling and allowed Idaho to enforce its abortion law in full while agreeing to hear oral arguments, while other provisions of the ban are already in effect and would not really be affected by the ruling. The case concerns whether a federal law that regulates emergency room treatment overrides Idaho's strict abortion ban. If the court dismisses the appeal, it would leave the legal question unresolved. Idaho's law says that anyone who performs an abortion is subject to criminal penalties, including up to 5 years in prison. Healthcare professionals have found to have violated the law can also lose their professional licenses. Well, if the court indeed rules in this manner, the decision would reinstate a lower court ruling that temporarily allowed hospitals in the state to perform emergency abortions to protect the life of the mother and the health of the mother as well. The Supreme Court is expected to release more opinions on Thursday and Friday and likely next week as well. The opinion just might have been leaked by mistake. However, it does appear to show that the justices would side with the Joe Biden administration on whether or not to make abortions compulsory in case of a medical emergency. Lawmakers in Idaho would be at a disadvantage as they have implemented very harsh bans on abortion. Such a ruling is a temporary win for the Biden administration and will also be a relief to Idaho women who fear medical complications from their pregnancies that could perhaps jeopardize their health. Idaho has been a leader of state efforts to criminalize abortion. In fact, its Defense of Life Act would make it a crime for every person who performs or attempts to perform an abortion, even when the woman's health is greatly endangered. Under the Idaho law, the only exception to abortion ban is when an abortion is necessary to prevent the death of a pregnant woman. In August 2022, the Biden administration had successfully sued to block the law. The government had argued that the state statute illegally conflicts with the Federal Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act. The law requires hospitals to provide necessary stabilizing treatment when the health of a mother is in danger. And the court found that Idaho's exception for only fatal case is a lot narrower than the federal law, which actually protects patients not only from imminent death, but also from emergencies that seriously threatens their health. The Idaho case will no doubt put the issue of abortion back into the political limelight as a major controversy, just months in fact before the presidential election, and would perhaps alleviate some of the hostility to the court that was fomented by the decision 2 years ago overturning Roe versus Wade. Well, Wednesday's inadvertent posted decision does not permanently resolve whether Idaho acted within its rights or whether the state law is preempted by the EMTALA. Rather, by a 6-3 vote, the court has retreated from a previous ruling that had temporarily allowed Idaho's law to take effect, meaning that emergency abortions were illegal in the state if they were to save a mother's health but not her life. It's the second time in 2 years that such a major decision dealing with an abortion case has been prematurely released. If you recall, 2 years ago, Politico had obtained a draft of the High Court's opinion that overturned Roe versus Wade, a document that was substantially the same as the first opinion that the court had released weeks later. In fact, it was a stunning breach of the Supreme Court's confidentiality and secrecy when Politico had obtained what it called a draft of a majority opinion that was written by Justice Samuel Alito that had struck down Roe versus Wade. In the case of Idaho, if such a ruling comes into effect, it will most certainly come as a relief to women, but would also leave unresolved the central question of whether federal law protects access to abortion in medical emergencies, and it isn't really likely to end that uncertainty that doctors feel how to navigate strict abortion bans while caring for their patients. How abortion bans have been playing out in medical emergencies has emerged as a huge explosive political flashpoint in the fallout of Roe versus Wade's reversal. The Idaho ban allowed abortions if a pregnant woman's life was at stake but not her health. 6 states have bans like Idaho's that include no exception for the health of a pregnant woman, though several of those laws are subject to litigation. Meanwhile, one of the court's liberal justices, Ketanji Brown Jackson, noted in her opinion that she wanted a solid ruling rather than a dismissal that moved the case back to another court. In fact, she calls the decision not a victory, but a delay. Well, the accidental publication of this very important ruling has also been met with cautious optimism from pro-abortion groups. Many now hope that this is a step forward for patients' access to emergency abortion care.